What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another review. Today we are reviewing The Marvels. My expectations going into this movie were pretty low. I was just hoping not to waste 2 hours of my time. I was like, at least entertain me a little bit. Don't be as bad as Ant-Man Quantumania, which I didn't actually see on release. I watched it for the first time a few days ago, and I can safely say with my whole chest that might be the worst MCU movie to date. And then came The Marvels. Is it worse than Ant-Man Quantumania? I don't think so. I'd say this is slightly better. I actually liked a few of the characters in this, and maybe there was a few decent sequences in this where Ant-Man Quantumania, it was all bad. Marvels has obviously got a lot of criticism from a lot of people for a lot of reasons. A lot of people see Captain Marvel as the moment where the MCU started to fall. Personally, I didn't particularly like the Captain Marvel movie, but I didn't think it was that bad. This movie is kind of a representation of what almost the entire Disney franchise of movies has become these days, considering it is so broken and fractured. Like, it feels like they had no time to make anything. They didn't write a compelling story. There's very few compelling characters. The plot is all over the place, mate. Like, it's here, there, and everywhere, and it makes no sense. There is no emotional moments in this movie. Like, everything that's meant to make a movie good, this doesn't really have. But still, with all that said, I don't think it is the worst MCU movie to date. This movie is obviously made with a more female target audience in mind, which I will remind people. I will say this is definitely the most unfinished movie I've ever seen. From, like I said, the plot being extremely fractured to just the visuals are just really bad. Like, when you look at some of Marvel's older movies, you say, wow, these visuals are revolutionary. The recent visuals have been absolutely dogshit. And it's probably because they absolutely overworked their VFX team, their CGI team. They probably absolutely overworked them. They have too much work. They have fucking impossible deadlines. They just got to do what they got to do. And that's kind of that's kind of just what Disney is these days. Just try and push out as much media as possible and try and siphon as much cash as they can. I want to talk about a bit about the characters, because I think there is one character in this movie that does really shine through, and that is Miss Marvel. I'm sure there's a few people that will find her irritating. I didn't watch the series because I don't like any of the Marvel series. I mean, I watched WandaVision and it started off okay. It started off decent, and then the rest of it was kind of boring. I watched the Captain America one and I just absolutely didn't like it at all. So I didn't really bother with any of the others, but maybe I will watch Miss Marvel. I doubt it, but she's actually quite an interesting character. The actress who plays her, they got the casting perfect for that. Do I think she can be the face of the MCU and start a whole thing? No, she's obviously not Iron Man, and I doubt she will have the popularity of and the support of the actual MCU fan base, I say in quotation marks. But she's definitely a fun character, and her whole family does add some comic relief and fun moments to this movie. I'll give them that. A lot of the other characters, though, they either got their characters absolutely assassinated or they're just boring and I don't care about them. Because, like I said, there is no character development in this movie, especially not for Captain Marvel. I mean, we see her in the first Captain Marvel movie, and there isn't really a lot of character development there because conveniently she has amnesia. And somehow we move 30 years into the future and she still has amnesia. Like, she doesn't fucking remember anything. Like, I feel like they should have abandoned that whole plot line. Like, I feel like, I don't know the exact production state of this. I heard they, like, fired their director. They did a whole bunch of shit behind the scenes. It seems like they got 50 people in a room and they just said, write a plot line and we'll just throw it all together. In terms of Captain Marvel, she's the most hated Avenger and the most hated character. Arguably the worst character in the MCU, and this movie doesn't make her any better. Like, there is no emotion to her character. Sometimes she's making jokes and then being super serious and then trying to be sad, and like, I just feel no connection to that character. I don't know if it's the character or if it's Brie Larson. She doesn't have the best reputation. I don't mind her, but I know a lot of people don't like her. In terms of Monica, I feel like they did miss a bit of a trick with her. She doesn't really have enough time to shine in this movie. Like, there is moments, but she doesn't really get that much. Like, she could have been a kind of intriguing character, but then they just do the whole thing at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil, and it kind of just throws a wrench in it. Like, I don't know if they want to do a spin-off series with her or something, or if all the post-credit scenes were made before they decided that maybe they won't go through with the Kang storyline and maybe they'll just bring back the original Avengers or whatever the fuck they're going to do now. I want to talk about Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson's character. They absolutely butcher my boy in this. Like, I think in Captain Marvel, one of the redeeming qualities of that movie is how funny Nick Fury is and how good of a character is. Like, he almost carries Captain Marvel, which makes me kind of enjoy the movie. In this, brother, what did they do to him, mate? He's literally just a joke machine. He just says cringe jokes over and over again, and none of them are funny. And like they kind of have this weird get with him and the Flurgan cat. The Flurgan cat guy got boring after the first movie. Like I think it was pretty funny in the first one, but they kind of overdo it in this. And they dropped so many wacky scenes, man. Like there's just so many wacky scenes involving Nick Fury and cats. And I'm just like, who decided this was a good idea to include this scene? What is going on? It doesn't even make sense that Nick Fury, like, he has a whole other plot line going on because they want to give him screen time because they know he was the only good part of the first movie. And then they kind of just ruin his character. I don't really have much more to say on that. I don't know how imperative he'll be going forward in the MCU, but we'll see what they do with his character. Now, they'll probably act like nothing happened, but it is what it is. And that gets me on to the final thing I want to talk about with the characters, which is the villain. Arguably the worst villain in MCU history. She literally is just the discount version of Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, she's also a Kree leader. She also has the hammer thing that he has, but Ronan's hammer is way cooler. She also uses, like, the hammer to contain a superpower from, well, he uses it for an Infinity Stone. She uses it for the band thing. So she's literally just a worse version of him. She has literally zero character development, zero backstory. The only reason that she has any animosity for Captain Marvel is that Captain Marvel came back, destroyed her planet pretty much, unintentionally, or she destroyed her planet, and she saw Captain Marvel beating up some Kree soldiers, and then she's like, yep, she's my enemy now. And then they kind of try and tie in certain narratives, like she's doing it to spite Captain Marvel, but her real motive is to save her planet. And then it's like, yeah, I don't care about this villain. I forgot her name and I can't be asked to Google it and find out what her name is. Yeah, she just kind of disinteresting, and I feel like that's been kind of a bit of a pattern with MCU villains, and even in a lot of Disney stuff in general. Like Disney seem to be moving away from villains, like in their actual movies. Right, like Encanto, actually a decent movie. They're just like, yeah, we don't need a villain. Even in Elemental, there isn't a villain. Like, so it seems like Disney are kind of moving away from the villain stuff, and it's kind of weird considering villains are some of the best characters you can have. I feel like, especially in the MCU, the villains have been either extremely underdeveloped or they've been absolutely just boring and useless. Like, I think of Kang, who was meant to be the next big villain. He was meant to be the next iteration of Thanos. And they've literally said, yeah, we're going to discontinue this. And not because he was disinteresting, but because of the actor's problems. And they're like, yeah, we can't bring him back. But I think as a villain, he is pretty disinteresting. Like, there's so many cool Marvel villains, bro. Just bring Galactus or something. I don't know what the fucking logistics of it is, but try something like that. Like, I remember Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, the concept for the villain was so good, and then they just didn't develop him. They didn't give him any screen time. And I mean, I can't even say the concept for this villain was good, mate, because it wasn't. And in terms of all the characters, the only kind of characters that I like in this movie is Miss Marvel and her family. Like, big up that, like I said, that was the best part of the movie, and they make the movie somewhat enjoyable. I'm not gonna lie. Her scenes make the movie enjoyable. In terms of other good stuff, I mean, it's not just an entire, like, hit fest of a movie. Like, there is some fun scenes mixed in there. Like, the fight scenes are pretty cool. Like, there's some sequences where, you know, they're doing some cool action scenes and they're switching their powers, and I think that was cool. The action scene at the end, the fight was okay. So that was good. Like, this movie didn't feel like it was dragging. I'll give it that. Like, there's some movies I've watched this year where it feels like the entire runtime I'm sitting there and I want to blow my brains out. This one, I wasn't actually bored throughout the movie, which I can give it credit for. I would attempt to break down the plot and talk about the plot, but like I said, the whole plot itself is just broken. It's like they didn't actually write a good plot and they were just trying to piece it together as quick as they could. Like, they couldn't figure it out, and they were like, yeah, we just need to throw everything we can together and hope it sticks. And it's like papering over the cracks with the plot, because a lot of the time it jumps from point to point just for the sake of it. They have no development for Captain Marvel, like I said. They have no development for any of the other characters, really. We have no emotional attachment to them. We have no investment in their backstory, because for all we know, Captain Marvel doesn't have a fucking backstory because she doesn't remember it, so they just show us bits of amnesia, and like I said, she still doesn't remember it, which is kind of irritating. The whole big plot device in this movie is that their powers are entangled, and every time they use them they switch, which inherently I don't think is a bad idea. I actually kind of like that part of the movie, and I like that plot device. But what is kind of annoying is that it doesn't always switch them. Like, sometimes it switches them for when it's convenient, and other times it doesn't. And then later on in the movie, it does every single time. But then it stops doing it. Like, it's so weird. Like, they have no consistency when it comes to the switching. And the switching is only used as a handicap tool to handicap the heroes against the villain, because the villain is not strong enough to even take on one of them by themselves. Like, if there was no handicap, Captain Marvel would eviscerate this woman. She would turn her into ash in 2 seconds. Even the other two would probably fuck her up. But they're like, okay, we need to have a handicap. So, you know, this villain can be somewhat threatening, even though she kind of gets her ass beat every single time they meet. Like, they meet 3 or 4 times. She just gets fucking walloped every time. There's also certain scenes in this movie which are absolutely fucking stupid. Like, the whole singing planet scene. I literally wrote down that should have just not made it to the final edit. Like, maybe it's trying to appease like teenage girls who like fucking Glee or High School Musical or some shit. But if I wanted to watch High School Musical, I would go and watch High School Musical. I just think it was such a pointless, pointless part of the movie, which I find kind of cringe. Although the King was kind of a cool character, I guess. Like, his aesthetic was cool, but like, it was, I guess it was trying to humanize Captain Marvel a little bit, because she doesn't, like I said, she has no tangible qualities, no relatable qualities to the character, right? So maybe they were trying to do that. Oh, look, she's like a princess. Wow. Like, no, it just didn't work for me. That whole bit didn't work for me. Like, did this movie make me like Captain Marvel anymore? Not particularly. Like, I still think that for large parts of the movie, especially the first parts of the movie, she's kind of insufferable. The one emotional part of this movie, or supposedly emotional part of this movie, is between Monica and Captain Marvel, where they go through the memories, and still, while they could have capitalized on that a bit more and maybe gone into a bit more context of that and kind of relived those scenes, they kind of just skirt over it. They don't really make you care about it, which I think they could have done a good job if they tried, but they didn't try. So, but overall, what would I rate this movie out of 10? Like, I still give it like a 5 out of 10. Like, for me, it's not the worst Marvel movie. Like, I still prefer this movie. I'd say I still prefer this movie to Ant-Man Quantumania. Like, I'd definitely go watch it again before I watch Ant-Man Quantumania again. In fact, I never want to watch Ant-Man Quantumania again. Don't make me do it. I'd still probably say this movie is also better than Thor Love and Thunder. Like, I really despise that movie. Like, they assassinated a lot of characters in that. That movie was just the epitome of trash. Is it? But that by no means makes me think this movie is good. I just think it's tolerable. I think it's watchable. Although, you know, maybe if they'd give us a cohesive movie and not release an unfinished project, then maybe it would be good. But yeah, they didn't really help themselves by releasing this. And maybe Marvel should go more to not trying to release, Marvel and Disney as a whole should go back to not trying to release as many projects as possible and going for the more quality over quantity approach. I'd appreciate that. But I'll give them credit where credit's due. They released Guardians 3 this year, which was amazing, in my top 5 movies of the year. But like I said, overall, 5 out of 10. I didn't hate the movie. Like, there was enjoyable parts of the movie. I'll give it that. It wasn't a total mess, although it kind of was a total mess. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.